Welcome to another episode of 30 Minutes with dailystraits.com. Our guest today is Kate Meads of Waste Free with Kate and Co. Based in Tauranga, New Zealand, whose Kate's business is centered around waste education management. Kate's crusade in the waste education started as a first-time mom wanting to save money through her cloth napping importing business in 2006. Inherently, she began to understand the waste and reduction benefits that reusable nappies had to offer. She ran what was to be her first parenting workshop in 2007 on reusable nappies in Hamilton, who was seeing an alarming statistics at landfill level from single-use nappies. In 2013, Kate sold and stepped away from her online reusable nappy business and the Nappy Lady to focus solely on waste minimization education. Fast forward to this year, 2021, Kate is now a consultant, a keynote speaker, and a motivational speaker for waste minimization education, which sees her presenting her ideas to over 30 to 500 people in a session. This year, Kate talks to close to thousands of people via community engagement programs, keynote speaking, and business motivation programs. Her Change Enabler business has expanded to include an additional skill educator, leading to a rebrand last year to her current company, which is Waste Free with Kate and Co. So, without further ado, let's invite Kate to the show and ask her all things about her waste education business. Hi, Kate. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So we'll just dive right into the question. So, can you just take us back to 2006? What was the reason or interest that sparked that sparked you to come into this crusade of waste education management?
So what happened was I had a baby, and when I had my son, I started realizing how many disposable nappies we were going through. And it was because with newborns, he was going through about 12 to 15 nappies a day. So over a week, the bin was filling up quite severely, actually. Before a baby was in the house, we had one small bag of rubbish a week and then introduce a baby, and it was a giant wheelie bin going out every Friday. And so it sort of got to a point where I just became aware of how much rubbish there was, and also how much it was costing me, which was about $45 a week just to buy nappies and then throw them away. And so as part of that, I started doing a little bit of looking into cloth nappies, and originally set up the business with my friend Paula, which was called Nappy Days, and we imported cloth nappies from Australia and Scotland. And I brought Paula out about a year into it, and sort of went more full time myself. But the big change for me was just actually noticing the amount of rubbish. And I thought, well, I'm one parent, and I'm putting out 100 plus nappies a week, and there's 145,000 babies at any one time in nappies. So how many are going out a day? And it turns out in New Zealand, the figures are about 1 million single-use disposable nappies a day go to landfill.
Oh,
So that for me was a big motivator to start encouraging other parents to start looking at cloth nappies, not just to save money, which was my starting point, but also to save the waste.
okay. So were you working and doing this on the side, or were you a full-time mom by then?
I was definitely working. So at the time, my son's father and I were running a workshop. So we had a car mechanics workshop. So I literally had my son on a Saturday when I wasn't working, and I was back at work on the Tuesday. So that was good old self-employment. And so I was working full time basically in the workshop doing the accounts and things, and then started this business on the side, in my not so spare time.
Okay, and what was the like you said you got your stuff from Scotland and Australia. In those like 2006, how did you get all the suppliers? Did you go to the internet and source the the suppliers from Australia and Scotland, or you had friends who had who had this kind of cloth nappy that they could send to you?
No, well, we actually originally brought a couple just to try. Hadn't even thought about setting up a business at that time. Just brought a few cloth nappies to try, and then found there were two particular brands that we really liked. So we decided to start selling them, and then I think it was about 12 or it might have been 9 or 10 months later, we became distributors for the brand in New Zealand.
Okay, so
Um,
you how did you find the brand?
that was just from trying them. We brought them on a website in Australia and got them sent over and liked them. So that's how we originally found them. Yeah, because there
Oh,
wasn't much around then. Like nowadays, there's like hundreds and thousands of brands, but back then there was around the world maybe 10
mm-hmm,
brands.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then you became distributors for the thing. And then how did the business evolve into a parenting workshop? Because you started having workshops then teaching other parents to follow suit, right?
Yeah. So my biggest thing, I suppose, was that there was a real lack of information around cloth nappies and what was available, because everybody thought it was the big old flat nappies with pins and fluffy pants. But the modern nappies that started coming out were quite fancy and real easy. You didn't soak them. You didn't like there was no bleaching or anything like that. It was just like chuck them in the machine and away you go.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I wanted to help other parents see what was available.
Mm-hmm.
So we applied for some funding to run a cloth nappy workshop. And back then, the councils were really interested in the waste figures,
Mm-hmm.
because nappies and sanitary make up between 8 to 14% of the domestic waste collected every week. So they were interested in reducing the amount of disposables going to landfill. So we got the first like tiny amount of funding from Hamilton City Council, because it was so new back then, and just decided to try and educate them. But what we'd done was try and work with a whole bunch of other brands, so that we would take samples of all the brands in and be able to show the parents all the different styles of brands,
Mm-hmm.
so that they could, because I mean, even for me, like, yes, we were bringing in two brands into New Zealand, but they don't, like with cloth nappies, they don't always sort of suit every single baby. So it was just trying to give people the just the advice on what's available. It wasn't even about, like, for us, it wasn't about selling nappies. It was just about getting people to know what was there.
So was it a business by then when you had your first parenting workshop, sorry, or was it just a side thing?
No, it was definitely a business by then. And with the workshops, I was working with about four other brands in New Zealand right at the start to, yeah, just to promote cloth nappies. So it was very unbranded, unbiased sort of advice.
And was it how many people turned up for the first workshop? Do you remember?
Oh, there was probably five. Five
What?
very enthusiastic parents.
Wow, and you evolved, you've become a juggernaut since. So how did you what was the first, was it free because it was funded, it was free, right?
Yeah. So back then it was definitely free. And then what happened was, we started wanting to be able to get people access to cloth nappies to try and get some of the councils to fund them. So that's when I became the Nappy Lady,
Mm-hmm.
which is still weird. But because I was getting a lot of TV interviews, I was doing a lot of advocacy and working with a lot of the other brands. And so I started running more and more workshops around the country, and we came up with a scheme, which we still sort of do today with some of our parenting workshops, where to to get parents past the barrier of cost, because it does cost to buy cloth nappies. But to get them past that barrier and try them, we worked with the councils to get subsidised packs. So the people would pay, say, $20 or $25, and then working with all the brands, we would make it, the person paid $25, the council paid $25, and the person got $100 worth of stuff. So the brands gave it to us for 50% off because it was like an advertisement for them. The council's half funded the other 50%, and then the person's ticket cost covered the other half of the 50%. So they'd go home with $100 worth of nappies to try.
Oh, great. So by this time, was Paula still in the picture, or she had?
No, no, it was a bit like she had her first son, Max, and then we started the business, and then it was only about 4 or 5 months later, she was pregnant with her second. So she continued on for a few months, but then she was just like, I can't do this with 2 kids. so
Oh.
so I brought her out. Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
did business. So you were selling, what was the online business about? You were selling reusable nappies, cloth
Yeah.
nappies?
Yeah. So we had the business that, well, I had the business that was selling cloth nappies. And then I set up the Nappy Lady. So it was completely separate from the business and provided really unbiased advice, because I really didn't, for me, I wanted to get all of the brands to work together, because the way I put it years ago was, like, we were all fighting over about 4% of people who were using cloth nappies. So the pie, we had this tiny wedge we were all fighting over. And so what I did was propose to them that by working together, and I sort of took a sidestep from my business and had somebody managing that to go more into the Nappy Lady, because I was like, well, let's grow our portion of the pie that we're fighting over by working together, instead of us all individually fighting for a very small percentage of people. Let's get more people using them and then fight over that instead.
Oh, so the Nappy Lady is like a workshop kind of awareness business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was very much advocacy for cloth nappies. Yeah.
Awesome. And I just want to take you back a bit. Do you remember the initial investment you put in to start your business?
Back then, I think, because we had to build a website, it wasn't cheap back then either, building websites. I think we both put in about $2,500 each to get our first order in. And then as we built the website, I think our first website cost us something like $15,000. And then on top of that, so when I brought Paula out, I had to pay her back. I think it was about 20,000 from memory, because she put up the money for the website, and then I was doing a lot of the admin. So I was sending out all the orders, and she paid for the website. So yeah, I brought her out. Yeah, it was about $20,000.
Awesome. Okay. And you had no business plan, right? You just went with a gut feeling to start this?
No, well, that's where I was lucky, because Paula was very much into business plans. So she came up with this amazing. I'm not the business plan person. I'm the creative, like, let's do this, let's do this. I've got this idea sort of person, but she sort of brought it back to it was about a 54-page business plan where she'd done a lot of market research. She was a research scientist, so that was right up her alley. So she wrote this amazing business plan, which I used for quite a few years actually, for my, like, just going forward on, like, keeping on with what was happening and what was changing and who to work with and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, so it was quite a formal start, really.
All right. So you went up to 2013 were you alone, or did you have staff with you by the time Paula left?
I started with staff, probably. I had one lady, Karen, who worked for me very part-time, like maybe came in 1 day a week to help me process the orders. And then I had another lady, because she had another child, and then I had another lady who came and she worked for me for a few years doing part-time. And then when I took the Nappy Lady sort of next level, I had 2 part-time sort of staff working at different areas. And now I've got 1 full-time staff member and one part-time sort of it does the hours that she needs to. But we work very flexible, like, you know, come to work, do what you need to do, go home, work from home, whatever you like. So it's a real sort of cruisy work environment.
Yeah, great. So what happened in 2013? Like, you sold the business because did you find it hard to manage, or, you got sick of it, or?
To be honest, the main reason that I sold it was because, like, we would go and do baby shows, and because I had such a profile as the Nappy Lady, I wouldn't be on my stand at all, because I didn't want people to feel that because I was on this, I didn't want people to even know what brand was mine. So didn't feel comfortable being on the stand, because then I felt like people would think that they were the best nappies, um, and I wanted people to have choice. So I would spend most of the weekend off the stand, so that people didn't see me on the stand, because once I stepped into that sort of advocacy role, I really wanted it to be a fair playing field for all brands. I didn't want them to sort of put their trust in me and then feel like they were being taken advantage of, which was probably for me quite, like, it was, I ethically I couldn't do it, so I needed to sort of hang back. But then it got to a point where I just realized I didn't like import and distribution. So I was like, I'm happy to sell that part and just try something else, because I hated debt. I hated having like, we would order thousands and thousands of pounds worth of nappies, and then having to pay for them up front and wait for them to get here by ship, and then sell them. But by the time they got here, you'd be basically ordering more, and then I just felt like I was always in debt, and I didn't like that feeling. So I was happy to step away from that.
So you mentioned pounds just now. I take it you're British. Are you British?
No, but because we were getting them from Scotland, we had to pay in
Oh,
pounds. Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot that I never knew. Like, I'd never done anything like that before in my life. So it was trying to find companies that I didn't even know how to import anything. So it was quite a learning curve, because I had no idea what I was doing. So
Oh.
yeah.
All right. So who did you sell it to? And was it easy to find a buyer?
Yeah, well, when I was ready to sell, I just told a few people, and we straight away had somebody who was interested. So it was a distribution company that brought it. And yeah, and then since then it's been sold to another young couple who run it now. And I haven't met them, so I don't know who they are really. But yeah, it's sort of for me, it was, I loved this, like, I loved the business and I loved everything that I'd built, but I was ready to step away from it, just because I couldn't honestly, I just couldn't sell the nappies, being in the position that I'd put myself in, so I had
And
to have other people doing it for me.
yeah, was it a good sale? Was it what you wanted? Like,
Not really. No, I mean, at the end of the day, I was just ready to get out. So
mm-hmm.
I sold it for, I can't even remember the figure now. But I was basically the stock value plus, I don't know, it might have been 10 or 15,000. I can't even remember. It's been that long ago. Yeah, but I didn't make a fortune out of it, that's for sure.
What did you sell? The Nappy Lady, and also the online business, which was distribution of cloth nappy, right? Is that what you
Yeah, so
sold?
I sold the distribution business, and yeah, but I kept the Nappy Lady because that was still part of the advocacy. I'm still sort of funny because people still call me the Nappy Lady now, but because I do such a diverse range of work, it's sort of weird if going and doing a workshop on food waste, and they're introducing you as the Nappy Lady.
Okay, but you managed to pivot quite successfully into education, and now you're doing like waste minimization education. So how did that come about? And you give workshops throughout the country, and you're pretty famous as well. I mean, you've been on TV and stuff like that. So how did you rebrand yourself?
Well, it's been a challenge. It's over the years, it's been trying to decide what, because I'm very what I would call a mainstream greenie, I suppose. I'm not, I never claim to be perfect. And so I really wanted to portray that we're not a perfect company. So we've gone through a few name changes trying to work out what we were. Because the councils years ago, what happened was I was doing nappy workshops. So that was still predominantly my business back in 2013. And then there was a campaign that came in called Love Food, Hate Waste, which must have been in about 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2015, 2016. And one of the councils asked me if I would do a food waste workshop. So I created some new content to run a food waste workshop and called it, because again, like if you just say, oh, I'm doing a food waste workshop, nobody's going to come. So we called it a food lovers masterclass and created a whole workshop on like why we waste food and what the main waste foods are. So I created that, and then that sort of took off, and quite a few councils picked that up as a part of their education program. And then it was probably in about 2018, we just started doing other workshops. So we just started a waste-free living workshop, and then we were getting asked to go and do like speaking at schools and talking to students. So we just went and talked about rubbish. And then, yeah, it's just sort of growing and growing. And then we started having corporates asking us to come along. So we developed some corporate courses. I still do most of the education myself, so it keeps me on the road quite a bit. But yeah, recently, or it must have been beginning of last year, I got one of the girls who works for me. She was really keen to start doing presentations, so she started doing the odd one, and now she's sort of doing quite a few for me as well.
So how do you like get all the I mean, how do you keep yourself up to date with knowledge, and what kind of knowledge do you impart in your workshop? Like, do you read a lot, like, or do you go conferences for yourself? Do you attend a lot of overseas conference? Where do you get the
Well, that's a good question, actually. Most of it I've learned just through my journey. So I talk a lot. So I talk to a lot of people, and just gain knowledge from them about what's going on. We work with around 44, 45 councils at the moment. So, whenever we're there working for them, we're getting up-to-date information. I've got a lot of good contacts in the industry who give us up-to-date information. So we keep it quite current. I attend normally the New Zealand conference here on waste minimisation, but I mean, most of the stuff I've heard already before I get to the conference. So it's not, those sort of things haven't helped my knowledge. I used to read a lot, but I don't have time now.
Oh,
It's just basically just being part of conversations and learning what the problems are. And for me, I'm fascinated in the behavior change of people, like how to get somebody to who knows nothing about recycling and has never done it properly to change their behavior to do it properly. So for me, it's probably quite a strong personal interest in what makes people tick.
why should people attend your workshop? Because a lot of people would rather go and see a concert or something like that. But why do people attend your workshop? Can you give us like a pitch?
Well, I mean, most of the people who come to my workshops are people who know they want to make a difference, but don't know where to start. And like that's where the parenting workshops have always been quite a strong part of what we do, because parents are going into a totally new time in their lives with a new baby coming into the house. So they're educating themselves quite heavily on all their options and what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. I mean, I feel quite lucky that we never had Google pregnancies when I was pregnant, because I feel sorry for the parents of today who Google everything. But yeah, I think that it depends on what journey somebody's on, because if they're becoming parents, then they're on a journey to find out a lot of stuff around how they're going to bring up their child. So the waste-free parenting workshop is always quite popular, because there's a definite target market. The other ones are quite diverse, and it is a night out. Like a lot of the people come because they hear from a friend who's been once before, who enjoyed it. And I like to use a lot of humor. I don't like, there's nothing worse than listening to somebody who's boring. So I do use a lot of humor in my workshops and make it as fun as possible. And you often get people at the end who are like, oh man, I thought 2 hours was going to be a long time, but it goes really fast. So that's the sort of stuff we want to hear. But it's just, yeah, the goal we set for this year was to work more towards reaching the unreachable people, because we know that with some of our workshops, people will come along because they're already sort of semi or interested in waste minimization or what's going on in the planet. For us, it's more the stuff that we're working on currently is around like reaching the unreachable people. How do we get the people who have no idea why they need to do it properly, like just even starting to think about what they could do to make a difference?
So you have a very interesting journey from a humble nappy to a juggernaut in waste management. So I was just wondering, have you have plans to write a book on waste?
I get asked all the time. Yeah, I'd love to write a book, but unfortunately, because the borders are closed, I'd love to go and sit on a tropical island and write a book for 10 days. But yeah, definitely want to write a book. I just haven't got the time at the moment, but it's all up here. I just need the time to take it from there onto paper, and then yeah, it would be there. But it will happen. Just not next month.
Alrighty, the final question is, what advice would you give someone at home, or someone, a lot of people are stuck in the house at the moment, like there's lockdown in Sydney where I am. So how do you minimize waste in their day-to-day life? Like one tip you can impart, like that you think people should do this more, but they're not doing it because they're unaware or something like that.
I think it's the first thing is actually just starting to be basically aware of how much waste you create. I think there's a real shift over the years that, like, well, one of the figures from Plastic Free Ocean is that we've created more plastic in the past 10 years than we did in the past entire century. We're living a very, very consumption-based lifestyle, which is around convenience, and especially now with COVID, hygiene and all that sort of stuff. And it just creates masses of waste. And what I like, one of the simplest things people can do is, first of all, recycle properly. So check your local rules on what you can and can't recycle, because it can be different between councils and regions. And then the second thing is just start an awareness of what you buy. So things like bottled water. I mean, why do we need to buy bottled water when you get perfectly good water out of the tap? And if you're really unhappy with that, put a filter in. You'll save thousands. But I think it's just being aware of what we actually buy. Like, do you need bottled water, or could you put a filter in? If you're drinking a bottle of water every single day, that's basically 365 bottles of water need to produce in 1 year. If you're going in to buy food, buy minimalistic packaging. So get a broccoli that's just a broccoli, not in a plastic bag. You don't need the bag. It's just you're going to take it home, chuck it in the rubbish. And just even looking at things like overpackaged cereals, where the cereal box is like that big, the cereal inside it's that big, and it's in a box in a bag. Like, if you like muesli, buy the muesli just in a bag, not in a bag in a box. Like, it just, even though you can recycle the box, you've still got two pieces of product to try and recycle or try and dispose of. So I think it's mindfulness is the first thing. Is just, what are you buying? Could you do it differently? I had a moment where I thought I'd make my own muesli. I thought it would be great. I saw this fantastic Jamie Oliver recipe on granola. And so I went to the supermarket, brought all the ingredients, made my kilo of granola, and then picked up 9 plastic bags from all the stuff that I'd brought that I needed to put in it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I might as well just buy a kilo of muesli in 1 plastic bag. So it's just being aware, really. Because for me, I look at the planet, and I suppose in the big picture, when I was born here, we lived on a livable planet. We could swim in every single river and ocean in New Zealand. And basically in one generation, it's gone from that to now having like apps in Auckland where it tells you where it's safe to swim because of pollution. So we got big problems. And the reality is I was born onto a livable planet, and in my generation, I'm now handing on my kids and grandkids a massive problem to sort out. And landfills are filling up faster. The ocean's filling up with plastic. We're overfishing. We're overgrowing. We're throwing away huge amounts of food that we buy but don't eat. And we're in this situation where the planet can't sustain the lifestyle we want. So we have to change the lifestyle so that our kids and future generations actually can live here.
Awesome. All right. And that is all the time that we have for today. We have just been speaking to Kate Meads of Waste Free with Kate and Co. Thank you so much, Kate, for joining us today. It's a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you. And the pleasure is all ours. Be sure to join us next week, where we aim to interview another awesome entrepreneur from across the Tasman. Thank you very much.